Good morning. This practice today is for all you cyclists out there, or those of you who are getting back into cycling and you're finding your legs again and you're figuring out how to get on that bike and just have a great time out in the summer if you're out up here in the northern hemisphere. I want to make a very specific comment about cycling and cyclists in this program. So the big thing with cycling is that we have a pelvis and we have legs, and there's big circles that are happening between that leg bone and the pelvis. And you need to have really good pelvic stability in order to do that and to connect with your foot. So that's a biomechanical pattern that's required. What often happens as you go and start to get fatigued and you start to lose some of your integrity is you tend to fall into your hands or into your pelvis and you sort of sink down and there's a collapse that you might not even know you're doing. And then you can probably lean over to one side or find some other way to get through in order to do the riding. But then that can lead to SI issues and foot cramping and even that stinging nervy pain down into your wrist that you kind of have to shake out. So this practice is really meant to help you rest and rejuvenate and then retrain some movement patterns so that you can refine what it is that you're doing. And this can be a practice you can play with. Now, having said that, I can't see you. I don't know who's following this. I don't know what your movement patterns are. I don't know what your previous medical stuff is or your knees or your SI. I don't know any of that. This is just a general practice. And so I can only hit so many places. And if you need more help, I work with a lot of yogi athletes that I call them. People who are very athletic and even people who want to be more athletic and want to integrate this yoga framework, this yoga state of mind, so they develop a more inner sense of awareness. And if this idea of ease as a foundation to like surge really, really resonates with you, I'd be happy to work more in depth with you. But just remember, this is a general program. This is not like the end all be all for all cyclists. So some people have been sending me some DMs saying, this program was bad for my knees or that program was bad for my hips, amongst all the other ones that are coming in saying my pelvis is doing great and my back's doing great, my knee's doing great. I just want to make sure that you all know that I can't see you. So I can't customize something specifically for you when I'm in this framework, but I certainly can if you give me a call. Okay? So we're going to begin on our backs. We need a number of props today. I call it the kitchen sink because we need a bolster, we need a roller, we're going to use a theraband, we're going to use a spinal strip. The spinal strip, if you don't have one, that's okay. Just use a rolled mat or a rolled up towel or a blanket. We're going to have a strap and a block handy as well. So we're going to just start ourselves over the bolster and line on your back here and have the bolster as close up to your body. Now I know some of you are going to have bolsters that are a little bit smaller than this. Just rest your legs here and rest your pelvis. I'm purposefully not having you legs straight or legs bent. I don't want you to bring your knees in, and that will be a focus of another video another time. But I don't want you to tent your knees, even if it gives you relief. I really, really want you to take your legs over the bolster. We're going to be here for just a few breaths just to settle in. And for you to feel your legs and your pelvis and your torso. Easy, easy breathing. And then bring your legs up to what we call Baddha Konasana. Bring the bottoms of the feet together and then roll the legs out into external rotation. Now, a big thing with cycling is that the movement is all pretty much plain. The legs are moving sagittally. Flexion extension is what I mean by flexion extension. This is doing a little bit of, and same through the spine. But for the most part, when we look at the driver of the movement, that's what it is. It's to want to stretch out through the hamstrings and the calves and the hip flexors. We're going to include a little bit of. But what I have found that really helps people gain better integrity physically is to work through rotations and abductions and get a feel for how their leg bone and their feet are connecting, and then to help with a bit of twisting through the torso. So that's a general type of feeling and way. Remember, that's general. And we utilize these as a way of improving your awareness. Is. A lot of people don't do that. And if you do that, if you take that time and become aware of what's really underneath the compensatory, like underneath, to rest and retrain that, you will blow how well you ride. That I can promise. Okay, now from here we're going to bring our legs up into hook lines, so feet are on the floor and the knees are bent, and I'm going to just have you place the bolster beside you because we're going to use it again, but this time we're going to take the ankle up onto the knee. Now, if you've been following me for any period of time, you'll know that I'm a big fan of keeping that pelvis quiet. So when you move that leg into flexion, so the leg's coming towards your belly, the articulating joint, primary one is the leg bone and the hip socket, same as you rotate. So the pelvis is completely quiet. Not anchored, you're not like flattening your back to the floor, but just as quiet. And then from there, I want you to move over and start to rotate your body towards that bolster. So if I do your direction, so you can see if the bolster's here, if I have the ankle to the knee, then I'm just going to rotate my body towards the bolster. So the pelvis is going to lift off like this. My shoulder girdle is going to stay where it is, and I'm going to let the bolster catch my legs for me. Yeah. Now what makes this movement really interesting is if you can keep the front of your hips quiet and only go as far as your hips stay totally quiet. Okay, so now I'm going to move the bolster. You keep going in the range you are. I just want to make sure you can see enough of me because the bolster can get in the way a little bit at this angle. Right, so this is where I'm moving. And you can also stay right here. Like if you're feeling that, like your intuition or your inner sense of like, yeah, this is great, you can stay right here and relax into your being on the bolster. You can be right here. Part of this process is not just me telling you what to do, right? It's enabling you to grow the awareness of your entire being. That's why the first chunk of what I teach people is to feel and to be aware. And that grows your own internal filter so that whatever information you're getting in about how you should move or how you should breathe or what you should be doing to support yourself and getting better, you can take that information and put it through your own filter. We've all heard that there's information overload out there, and I do not agree. I think there's a lot of information out there, but what a lot of people don't have is a clean filter through which they can filter that information. Yeah? So that's really one of my big purposes, is to help you clear out your filter so you can decide for yourself what works. Because some of the stuff that I'm suggesting to you is probably absolutely awful for you specifically, right? But you need to grow that own internal filter for yourself. Okay? And I'm happy to help you grow that. And then I'm even happier when you disagree with me. Seriously, I am. I love it when people ask me questions and just don't take my word for it. Even though I've got lots and lots and lots of experience, what I'm suggesting might be not right for you. Right? So that's really, really important. So I'm happy to entertain those questions. So long as they're coming from this place of that you want to grow your own internal filter, you're learning and you're feeling, you're gaining awareness of this thing that is your inner sense of you. Yeah? That's when this really starts to take hold. Okay, we're going to let that bolster go for a moment. And we're just going to take a small twist. Another one. This is a familiar one. Leg's going to come in. Body is going to be quiet. Leg's going to come across your body. So the pelvis hasn't moved. Legs coming across your body. And then you're bringing yourself into the position. Now my hand is very, very, very gently on my leg. It's mostly a twist rather than a leg pull. Shoulders totally easy on the ground. And then you're going to come back. And then we're going to do the same thing the other side. Shoulders stay totally easy on the floor. Okay, lovely. And then bring that back. Okay, now we're going to grab hold of your strap. And the strap, we're going to loop it, bend one leg, bring the foot up. We're going to take the leg up towards the sky. Okay. Now I've got a pretty long strap. It's either 6 or 8 feet, but a 4-footer works just fine. Or if you have a tie or a bathrobe tie, that works too. And you can place this strap either at the heel. Lots of people like it at the heel. It feels very secure for them. And other people like it at the 4-foot. Totally depends on your preference and what it is that you're seeking. So just play with what feels right. Yeah, I don't want to give you too much intellectual. I want you to kind of feel in your own self of if it works for you or not. And then bring your elbow right to the floor. That's going to help your neck and your shoulders. And then from here, we're going to just bring your leg across your body. Yeah. Pelvis is on the ground. Easy through your feet. And if this knee needs to be bent, that's fine. We're going to take the leg out 6 inches. Good. And then we're going to come back. And as we go into this movement across, I want you to notice your breathing. Right? If we're going to call this yoga, and we're going to be focusing lots on our movement patterns, we also have to focus in on our breathing. We have to focus in on our awareness. And this idea of asana, which when translated loosely, means sitting comfortably and still. Which is why I like to say, can you do your movements with 5 to 15% less effort? Anyone can push out a movement or an exercise, but that's not necessarily yoga. We want to grow your inner awareness. Yeah? We want to grow your softness because we know that inherently softness is strength. We want to reduce the amount of inappropriate or unnecessary tension. Right? Sitting comfortably and still. Find that little place. Good. And now bring that leg back down. Okay. And other side. Easy, easy breathing. I was noticing when I got up, because it's 5 a.m. when I start these practices about, and we're now noticing that that twilight is happening. It's not so much dark anymore. So very soon I'll be able to lead these from outside, which will be super fun. Give you a little taste of the mountains, of the lake. Be a nice view. Then down here in my basement. Easy breathing. Easy breathing. Really feel that leg bone moving in your pelvis. Notice what's working for you. Easy, easy, easy breathing. Okay, and then bring that leg back down. Okay, so now we're going to roll over. We're going to grab our spinal strip or rolled mat or rolled towel. We're going to have a lay back. So here's the spinal strip. I talk a lot about this guy, this foam strip. I've been using these for a long time. Before I used these, I used pool noodles. That's another thing you can also use. You can use a pool noodle. Now, the reason I stopped using the pool noodle, there were two reasons. So where I put this is I put this right at the bottom of the base of my breastbone, right? So like for women, there's our bra line. You can place it right there. Okay, and so I'm putting whatever position, whether you've got a rolled mat, whether you've got a rolled towel, or you've got this awesome foam spinal strip. This is where you are. So you'll see that my pelvis is lower than my head. So I've got this back bend happening here, but I've also got this happening over my shoulders here. There's like this horizontal opening that's happening this way. Now, if you are finding that it's like way too much on your back to be here, or on your SI, then lift your hips up and place a block underneath or a towel or a blanket underneath. So you'll see how I shorten up the line here. My pelvis is now coming more in line. Then do that, okay? Or come off of it and just lie flat, okay? And if you want more help with your SI or your back when you're in this position, because really, if you think about it, if you practice and become supple enough, you ought to be able to do this. And it could make a huge difference on your riding in a big way. So if you want my help, let me know. But I was telling a story about why I moved away from pool noodles. And the reason why is because this is more rectangular and has edges, and the pool noodle is round. And so a lot of people were losing the pool noodle. They were rolling back and they would come onto the pool noodle, they'd roll off of it. So that wasn't all that effective. And there's a lot of things you can do with a spinal strip. And it's a bit firmer. And as you rest on it, you can let yourself sink into it and let your eyes rest. So it's moving up the spine. And so the paraspinal muscles, which are a stream of muscles that go up next to the spine, that's where the pressure is. But also as you get up between the shoulder blades even, we've got muscles that attach between the blades and the spine. The pressure of the spinal strip can help those guys settle out a bit. We've got this back bend happening, and if it's working for you, this front line of our body is releasing. Yeah. Even the tissue under the clavicle, so all that subclavius tissue and pec minor and pec major, all that's getting a chance to have a break. This really is an opposing movement to how we are on our bikes. If you want, you can bring your arms out to the side a little bit. Easy breathing. My mic didn't go there. I just wasn't talking. Just easy breathing, coming back to your breath. Okay, lovely. So we're going to roll off of this, and you're going to just roll onto your back for a moment and just notice what you feel. I was teaching a person the other day, and she said, I was just happy to get off of this thing, which makes a lot of sense sometimes. Okay, we're going to come onto our sides now. We're going to take our hand, our arm underneath our head, and this leg here, we're going to just move it into rotation and bring the foot onto the floor. Do your best to keep your pelvis as quiet as you can, okay? As quiet as you can. We're just going to place the foot there, okay? Now with this arm, we're going to reach it forward. So we're going to do one thing at the hip and one thing at the leg. So the hip, we're going to move that leg back into rotation. We're not rolling the whole pelvis. You see how where my shirt lands, and you can see my striped pants, I'm moving like that. That's what I don't want you to do that. But see how my leg bone moves in my pelvis? This is the articulating joint here. You can even put your hand, if you can reach, behind where your gluteal fold is. And I want you to think about maybe rotating from there. It's not exactly that, but it will give your brain a place to focus. You can even put your whole hand on your butt cheek and then let that leg bone move, okay? I want you to try not to squeeze your butt cheek. I want you to think more about my bone is moving in my hip socket, and then feel what happens with your tissue. I know that's a bit counterintuitive and doesn't really happen physiologically, but I want you to play, just humor me, play with thinking about leg bone moving, and then what tissue seems to be responding to that. Okay, good. Now with this top arm, you're going to reach it forward, so you're going to be protracting your shoulder blade as you reach the arm forward, and then retracting your shoulder blade as you come back. Now watch this part between my ribs and my pelvis. I'm not doing, see how I'm moving my whole torso? I'm not like doing this back bending type of thing with my two body parts. I'm isolating it. So here, leg bone, here, arm and shoulder blade. Okay? So you'll see this part is remaining unchanged. Now this might be a bit of a coordination conundrum, which is great. Coordination conundrums, if you can say that 5 times really fast, are good. So long as they don't create stress. Right? We want to have you enjoying this exploration. Yeah. Neck is easy. It's only just the shoulder blade. So you're not elevating your arm up to your ear. Okay, good. Good. Okay. Now let the leg come down. And from here, we're going to raise the arm up to the sky. Okay. Now we're going to start taking a twist. Not all the way, and then coming back, and then come down. Okay, now you could, I'm going to use a spinal strip here because I don't have a blanket handy. This is not ideal. I'll just say that for everybody, this is not ideal. But you could place your head on something, and then arm comes up, and then you can roll all the way over if you want. But the spinal strip is not an ideal. Blanket's better. But I'm going to just do this. I'm not going to take my twist all the way. You don't have to take the twist all the way. I just want you to feel yourself moving into a rotation, and I'm going to teach you something about your shoulder here. Okay. So now typically, if you've been in yoga and you've seen this movement before, typically how it's done is that it's the shoulder comes. See how my arm bone now at my shoulder joint here, that becomes the articulating joint, versus here my ribs. The ribs, because a rotation of your torso really happens in this area here. Yeah. And the hips stay quiet. So from here, watch that you don't do this. Yeah. If you really want to integrate your arm and your torso, let the angle here be the same. And the hand, imagine you've got Crayola markers on them, and you're drawing an arc on the ceiling, but only because you're moving your torso. Okay. And now just notice how far you go. You might not go very far, particularly if your head is on your arm. You're really not going to go that far. If you've got a blanket under your head, you might go a bit further. But again, the whole point of this is not to go further. The point is to move well. The point is to sit with comfort and ease. The point is to integrate so that your tissue can find its optimal space and your breath can find its optimal space. And you develop this is going to sound funny, but this just juiciness. Yeah? You rebuild your inner power, your energy. So you don't have to push into stretches or movements in order to do that. In fact, that will be more draining and drying out than anything. Okay, one more. Good? Okay, let's take a moment, lie onto your back, and just notice the difference between your left and right side if there is one. So this is where you get to grow your awareness, and just take a moment and notice. And then we're going to come over onto the other side and do the same thing. Okay, so here we rotate that leg up. One second, I'm going to sneeze. Okay, and then one more. Okay, good. And then we're going to reach the arm out. So it's a protraction, retraction of the shoulder blade. Leg bone moves. So watch this part between my ribs and my pelvis. Okay, good. And now from here, let's bring the arm up to the sky. Now, if you want, you can always put something in between your legs if you'd like to. And then you can take a twist. You can have a blanket underneath your head. Just recognize that whatever you're doing is going to impact and influence how far you go, which is totally fine. You don't have to go all the way to get benefit. It's all about integrating, right? It's about connecting. It's about being aware. It's about retraining and refining. That's what you get as you recuperate. And then you ride faster and smoother, and people wonder, how on earth are you going so fast? One more, and let that arc right around. I actually have a great story of a client of mine who was riding the Golden Triangle, which is a really big ride from Radium to Golden, and one more spot. I can't remember what that is, but it's huge. It's a huge, huge, huge ride. I think it's 100 kilometers a day or something, maybe more. And he hadn't done anything all winter except yoga. And he got back on his bike and he did the Golden Triangle, which happens early on. And all of his buddies were like, how are you going so fast? And he said, I do yoga. It's true. Happens so often. Okay, we're going to come into hands and knees here. We're going to take this guy and we're going to go into a twist. Really, really, really easy here. Now, if you're someone who's got knee issues, please put something underneath your knees or come back to one of the other twists. If you really think about it, if you've got knee issues, there's something up, right? So there's no point in doing a movement that just exacerbates the problem. And remember, I can't see you. I can't see you to guide you. Yeah, let's go to the other side. Easy breath, easy movement. Perfect. Okay, nice. Okay, we're going to come back onto the floor for a moment. Let's see how we're doing with ankle to knee. And I want you to have your theraband ready here. You're going to take ankle onto your knee. You're going to take a theraband around your leg. Now, if you don't have a theraband, you can use a strap, but it doesn't quite have the same impact, but it will do fine. So you've got this around your leg like so, okay? And now you're going to push that leg into rotation, and the theraband's going to act as some resistance for you. Yeah? So you'll likely feel your butt start to engage. Try to keep the front of the hip relaxed, your toes on the other side relaxed, your jaw, you're breathing easy. Good. Okay. And then other side. Good. Same thing. I'm putting together a short sequence on some theraband work that you can play with. We'll have that ready in a little bit. But this is one of the movements that you can play with. Lovely. Okay, good. All right, now we're going to come into sitting. And grab a block, either a wooden block or a pressed block. You can either sit here in cross-legged like this. You can also sit like this. It's totally up to you, okay? You decide. The key is that I don't want you can also sit on a bolster too. Actually, I'm going to do that. I'm going to sit in a bolster. I'm going to be on my queen's chair. There we go, like this. Okay. So the idea of how you're choosing to sit is you want to be in a position where if you see my hips here, see how my legs come more of an angle downward like that? So I don't want your hips to be up like this. So your knees are pointing up. So see if you can get yourself into a position where your legs are moving downward that way, but your pelvis isn't there. So if you're using a block, what often happens is that people will get to the edge and they'll do something like this to try and get themselves vertical, but they're getting vertical by going through their back here, which is, we don't want that. So find a position where you actually can enable your pelvis to be in a better place when you're in sitting, okay? And to be honest, like a lot of these Facebook Lives I've been doing since the middle of March have me doing sitting work. And you know what's interesting is when I teach privately, rarely do I teach sitting work, right? But this is what we're doing. And this is why I get to teach you guys about where your pelvis is placed. And a big reason why with my private people I don't is because a lot of them can't actually sit on the floor. So we need to help them improve how all this works first. Okay, so now with that, we're going to bring one arm across and bring that arm across your body like that. Okay, and then bring the other arm across. Good. Okay, now this guy, we're going to rotate the arm bone in the shoulder socket and bring it back, kind of like you're going into cow face, but we're not going to go into cow face. We're just going to use that arm behind. And then we're going to bring that back, and then this arm, we're going to rotate and bring it back. Okay, now we're going to get a little more specific here of the arm bone in the shoulder socket. The movement we're going to do is like teenier than this. And I know you can't see me with my fingers, but like teeny. That's the purpose. Teeny, teeny. The arm bone rotates a very, very small amount in the shoulder socket. When we actually get into rotation, the blade often moves, and then down the chain, we move into a pronation of the arm, right? So you can see here, I can actually pronate and supinate my forearm around the elbow here, yeah? And I don't have to move here at the shoulder joint. This movement I'm going to do next, I want you to move just here, not down here, and I want you to keep your shoulder blade quiet, okay? The reason I want you to do this is I want to be very, very specific into the tissue that's right in and around here. This will be challenging for some of you because it's such a small movement. I also want to emphasize that it's not a movement I expect you to grow. Not at all, right? Because this is just one component of a bigger chain between your blade and your hand. I just want you to discover what that movement is. And you might go, oh my gosh, that's like tight in there. Yeah, maybe. But just see if you can find that. So you can see that my elbow is going along for the ride. My wrist is going along for the ride. And if you put your arm behind you, the blade is not moving. Okay? I don't want you to anchor your blade, but I only want you to move your arm as far as that blade doesn't move. Okay, now, see where my elbow is placed here, right? So I've rotated my arm bone and my elbow is like about there. That's where the eye of my elbow is. Now what I want you to do is just that. We're not bringing the hand behind our back. We're just letting it bend. Kind of like a Halloween costume. So you might feel a little bit of stuff down your arm. Okay, let that go. And just let the arm rest. And then out the side. Okay. I played with this once. I was on a stationary bike like 20 years ago. And I found myself really falling into my wrists. And I was getting some tension up into my neck. So I sat up onto the stationary bike and started to play around with this. And played around with keeping my shoulder blades quiet. And just moved here. And started working with this movement, really, as I was discovering it. And then all sorts of strain started to go away. And then I started to play with it with my students. And then bend the elbow. And it was really neat to see what would happen for people. Okay, good. And then let that come down. All right, let's do that one more time. Rotate that arm bone in the socket. So if there's any teachers that are watching this, okay, now this time we're going to extend the arm back behind you and do the same thing. Is that when you discover something in your own body, watch that you don't assume that it will be good for everybody because it works for your body. What you do is you notice that it works, and you can start to play with it with other people and see what the other patterns are. And usually there'll be an adjustment for each person. So you see how I'm now behind my body a bit? But all I've done is I moved from here doing the same movement and just took it into extension and doing the same movement now. Okay, watch that you're not side bending or lifting or... Okay, so find your range that works. Okay. We want to be conscientious that we're not projecting. Okay, and then bring that arm into extension. What's going on in our body with other people. It prevents us from actually seeing what's going on in another person's body. Yeah? So just because someone has SI joint pain and you've had SI joint pain doesn't mean that the etiology of it is the same. So the reasoning for someone's SI might have to do more with a shoulder girdle issue, whereas yours might have something to do with a hip issue, right? Okay, and then bend. That's why being aware is so, so important, and growing that internal filter so you can allow whatever information is being shared with you, including what I'm sharing here, to kind of pass through and say, do I agree with that or not? Okay, good. And then let that come down. And then you find it for yourself. You create the thing that works for you. You own you. Yeah? That's what this is all about. All that evidence and research and opinions and all that other noise that's out there, which is very valuable noise. You filter that through your filter. And you design what works for you. All right, now notice what you feel. Let's place your hands either palm down or palm up. Totally up to you. And just feel now what it is that you feel. Easy breathing. Closing your eyes and notice your inhale and your exhale. I had a meditation teacher once say that meditation really is just about cleaning the lens of your glasses. So your glasses are dusty and all you're doing is cleaning it off so that you can see more clearly. Now you can stay here for as long as you would like. And when you're ready, just bow to yourself. Take a moment and thank yourself before you carry on with your day. And so to you, I breathe in with ease and out with gratitude. Namaste. See you tomorrow.